Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast. Here is your host.
Let's send it over to Rick Bucher.
Rick Bucher.
With Will Blackman on vacation, it's time for another edition of Bucher Friendless, occasional subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast network. I'm Rick Bucher. You can see me on FS1. You can follow me on Twitter at Rick Bucher. And you can read my stuff on Bleacher Report. Congratulations, by the way, to our podcast colleague Gary Owen, whose Get Some podcast climbed into the top 10 for comedy pods. You should check out the network's other pods as well. Age Groupie by Lindsay Hyken, a working mom who explains how you too could be an endurance athlete in your spare time. Also, a belated congratulations to the top finishers in the Bucher and Friends NCAA Bracket Challenge. Finishing third was Dan Boyle. Second was Ryan Thompson. And coming in first, Tanner Orfanidis. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Tanner was the only person in the bracket who had Virginia rebounding from last year's first-round embarrassment to winning it all this year. Well done, men, and enjoy your winnings. All right, it's time for a hard conversation with myself, along with everybody else who has resolutely defended Russell Westbrook for his shortcomings. Now, I didn't make too much of his rude treatment of the media because I knew from his teammates that it was an act. I didn't fault him for his turnovers because in general, they were the product of aggression or trying to do the right thing. And besides, he's led the league in assists 3 years running and hasn't exactly been surrounded by a host of scorers or shooters. I forgave him for his errant three-point shooting as well. Those who banged on him for his shooting percentage never took into account, or at least I didn't think they did, that he didn't have anybody creating catch-and-shoot threes for him, the way, say, Draymond does for Steph and Clay. Or that he's often forced into taking threes because he all too often gets the ball back from a teammate with a short shot clock because Russ is the team's best bet to create something out of nothing. And that something often has to be a three because the opposing team is loaded up to stop his drive to the basket. Besides, it's not as if he takes an obscene number of threes. There were 11 point guards who took more than he did this season. I almost get the feeling that there are people who believe he should not shoot threes at all because he shoots under 30%. The game doesn't work that way. An open three has to be taken. A three when there isn't time to get to the rim has to be taken. Now, I forgave Russ for all of that because of how hard he plays. And my belief that a guy that plays that hard never should be labeled selfish, which he has been by many. Playing that hard is a sacrifice, and I've never seen anyone play that hard who wasn't trying to win. For me, being selfish is about you're trying to serve yourself first, and if you're trying to win, then you're trying to win for the team. There's no way around that. And I'm going to stand up for the guy doing everything he can to win, even if he's not doing it well. Which brings us to now. And the old line about how you can't just play hard, you also have to play smart. And that especially applies to the NBA playoffs. Everybody plays hard in the playoffs. Playing smart is how you get to keep playing. And Russ isn't going to be playing beyond the first round for the third year in a row because he doesn't play smart. He plays hard. He plays with passion. But he doesn't play with a plan, other than the one he seems to make up from possession to possession and even moment to moment. And that's really determined by how he's feeling emotionally. I thought he had learned something from his year of going it alone 2 years ago and then having Paul George and Carmelo Anthony but not knowing how to utilize them. I thought the way he played during the course of this season was a reflection of that. I thought he had finally figured out that he had to use the pieces around him, and he had to use them intelligently, along with his own abilities. I thought he'd finally figured it out, or at least was on his way. Now I'm not sure he ever will. An NBA executive who knows Russ well said to me the other day that Russ is, and I quote, a great athlete who happens to play basketball. And I think he nailed it. It explains why Russ can be so great and yet why his greatness comes in fits and starts, especially in the postseason. It's never been more evident than in watching his battle with Damian Lillard in this first-round series between Lillard's Blazers and Westbrook's Thunder. Westbrook is, without question, the better athlete. He's faster and stronger, or at least he certainly looks the latter. And yet, Lillard goes by him at will off the dribble, while Westbrook, conversely, has a much harder time getting around Damian. Now, why? One reason is because Westbrook repeatedly makes textbook mistakes. On a blow-by in Game 4, Westbrook turned his head to see exactly where the screen was and set his feet, giving Lillard a path away from the screen. Now think about that. If he's looking to make him reject the screen, he doesn't need to know where it is. It's somewhere to his left. Doesn't matter, because I'm not letting my guy go that way. Besides, it's just a blip of focus lost on the man he's guarding. You don't turn your head. It's a blip that every decent player in the NBA will instantly recognize and exploit, on top of everything else. And the same goes for a shot. I've never fully, just watching him shoot the ball, I've never fully understand why he doesn't shoot a better percentage, from range especially. By all accounts, he works on it a lot. And he generally goes up straight, and there's nothing egregious about his form. I've seen way worse make far more. But what I've come to realize is that he's constantly changing the speed and rhythm of his shot. How he shoots the ball is how he's feeling in any given moment. He's an emotional shooter, which is a weird thing to say, and I don't know that I've ever said it about anybody, but that's what he is. How he shoots the ball, how quickly he shoots it, whether he holds his follow-through, how fast he rises, where he shoots from, it's all based on the mano-a-mano battle, what he's trying to prove in a given moment. That's not the recipe for having a consistent shot. You want to take all that away. You want everything to be as consistent as possible, including your mindset. That's why you practice and get that muscle memory, so that when the pressure of the game hits, you're not thinking about any of that. You can turn off your brain and your feelings and simply rely on your body doing what it instinctively does. Westbrook doesn't try to do that. Westbrook is feeling everything. He's making a statement with the shot, as if that's possible in the way you shoot it, as opposed to what the ultimate result is. Now, when it comes to the form and what that means, he has this terrible habit, on top of everything else, of snapping his arm back after he releases the ball, as if his arm is like a striking rattlesnake. That's part of the emotion. Like, I'm going to get this up and so quick you can't even see it, and my hand's back, and okay. It's bad form. I see guys on the playground do it all the time. To me, it's a styling look. Like, I'm going to show you how quick I am, how quick my release is. Nobody cares. Your release has to be quick enough to get the shot off. That's it. Baron Davis, another talented UCLA Bruin with decent form, but wildly fluctuating success from range, used to do the same thing. It's the first time I can remember really seeing it. And look, if it works, fine. But if a shot is not falling, holding your form is one of the basic remedies. Baron was, and Russ is, too much of a threat to drive for opponents to close out hard. So rushing the shot isn't necessary, nor is recoiling the shooting arm as if they just touched a hot stove. You don't get anything out of that. In fact, you're probably minimizing the opportunity where you might get a foul call. It's just not smart. Neither is going ballistic after knocking down a second quarter three, no matter what the score is. That's what Russ did in Game 4. He should know by now that a game is not going to be won or lost by one shot in the second quarter. Look, I'm all for passion, I have no problem with celebrating a big play. But no one does either quite like Westbrook. It isn't so much celebrating as raging. How dare you think that you can guard me? And not raging about the game, but about whoever he scored on. He scored on. When a teammate does something great, he's one of the first to acknowledge and congratulate them. But when he does something great, he looks at the crowd, he screams at his opponent. I get the sense his teammates are almost afraid to approach him. Like, ooh, we'll applaud from over here. The moment is his, and his alone. Now, that might be okay if he weren't OKC's leader. Yes, Paul George is their best player. But this is Westbrook's team. Make no mistake about that. It's not easy for teams to follow a leader who goes ballistic. For whatever reason, I'm reminded of John Calipari coaching Kentucky and how early on, anything would go a little sideways. He was the crazy uncle, yelling, screaming, and you could see it affect his team. In moments of crisis, when things are crazy, and then you got a guy on the sideline going crazier, that's not the way to calm down a team. And yet that's what Cal did for the longest time. He doesn't do it now. I think he won a championship as a result of just toning it down, realizing that if he's going haywire, he's only making things worse for his team. I feel the same with Westbrook. You'll never get his teammates to admit it. They're way too busy defending him because there's so many people out there who question his selfishness, what kind of teammate he is. The guys I've talked to loved playing with him. He's a different guy with his teammates than he is with the media, with people that he considers outsiders. Now, on the court of play, he kind of treats everybody the same, which is a little bit of a problem too. Like, everybody is being held accountable to the level, to the expectation of Russ Westbrook. And that works when you're really, not just really, really good, when you're the best. And right now, he's not that. He's not even the best point guard in the league. He's not even the best point guard in this series. Damian Lillard has demonstrated that several times over. Look, every now and then, you go crazy, guy gets emotional, it can work. It might work as a boost for the entire team. But with Westbrook, it's all the time. He always seems to be looking for something to get worked up about. Now, Michael Jordan looked for motivators too, but he let them burn and fester inside him. He'd talk trash and he'd wag his tongue, but you never saw him bellow or scream. At least not until the game was over. I don't even remember it then. But anytime he was making a statement, when he counted up the rings after he beat Utah, that was after the fact. Westbrook does it all through the game, about 5 times a game. That's got to be hard. I'm sure as a teammate, you're going, well, that's just Russ being Russ. But is he being the best Russ? And is he being the best thing he can be for everybody? When you have to sort of put aside something that your leader is doing, that's not ideal leadership. Now, Damian Lillard is exposing the difference between playing hard and smart every single game so far. The Thunder have tried to clown him in a variety of ways, which, for my money, is a worse look on OKC than it is on Damian. Dennis Schroeder mocked Lillard's signature act of tapping his wrist as if tapping a watch, which he does after hitting a shot at crunch time to signify it's Lillard time. And I think he even mouthed it. And the Blazers bench picked up on it. There was a little back and forth there. He did it at the end of, Dennis did it at the end of Game 3, which was the Thunder's lone win in the series so far. And by the way, so you get one win after losing 2, and now you're going to start mocking the guy who's still up in the series on you? Really? Little premature. And Dennis did it at the end of game 3 when Lillard missed a free throw. As if Westbrook, his leader, doesn't have his issues in that department as well. Westbrook did the rock the baby pantomime, and this was the killer for me. After getting stopped twice by Lillard, tried to drive, Lillard beat him to the spot, had to give it up. He got it back, tried to make a move again. Lillard stopped him then, picked up his dribble. He had nothing left but to shoot a desperation 3. Now, he made it, but all things considered, Lillard did a pretty damn good job on him defensively. But you wouldn't have known that by Westbrook. He pointed and yelled at Lillard as if Lillard had said something about his mom. There was another play under the basket in game 3. Westbrook essentially threw Lillard to the ground on a rebound. Neither one of them was in position to get, and got called for a silly loose ball foul on the play. Playing with, it's not emotion, it's out of control emotion. I don't watch how Russ plays and believe that he's under control. When you're the leader of the team, that's not a good look. That's not a good feeling if you're on the floor with somebody like that. Kobe played furiously. Jordan played furiously. KG played furiously. But they all learned how to channel it. And they didn't let that fury get in the way of making the next right play. I don't always agree with Charles Barkley, but he made an observation that is dead on. Russ is playing this series as if it's personal with Damian. While Damian is not taking it personal at all. He's just trying to win the game and the series. And it looks like he's doing exactly that. Now, what's different about Russ this year and why I still defended him this year, in spite of his shooting percentages dropping in every category, is he has tried to utilize the talent around him. He isn't a one-man wrecking crew when things get tough. Quite the opposite, especially in Game 4. He was looking to get the ball to someone else the majority of the time down the stretch. But that's when it dawned on me. The combination of seeing the end of Game 4 and just all the back and forth with Lillard. Russ doesn't know how to weave his own game with those around him. Lillard, who I've never considered a classic point guard, is far more adept at being aggressive to create a shot and discerning, even if it's at the last second, whether he should be shooting or there's a particular teammate who's come open as a result of the attention that he's drawn. Russ still looks uncertain in those instances. I'm going all the way, or I am giving the ball up. Very rarely do you see Russ attack and then find someone else. He does, but again, even in those situations, I don't feel like there's a sense of, I'm going to try to get this, and if I don't, then I'm going to look for this or this. He still very much feels to me like he's just figuring it out on the fly. Let me go up in the air, and then I'll decide. LeBron had this for a long time too, and there's times he still has it. And maybe this is a function of just being such a tremendous athlete that it's built into you. I'm just going to exert my physical advantage and see what it produces. The problem is you can't be consistent with that, especially when a team is game planning for you, especially when it becomes a mental battle of trying to figure out the puzzle. They're going to take away this. I'm going to exploit this. That's where your consistency comes in. And that's where you learn from one mistake to the next. Now, for this year, and at the end of Game 4, his default is to trust his teammates more than he ever has, which is a good thing. But the ideal would be to merge the threat of him doing something with the threat of everyone else. And for Russ, it seems to be an either-or decision. I figured when it was that way with KD, and I mean, this has been the case going all the way back to those days. I figured it was a function of playing with KD, that they were both guys who could create their own shot, that it had a lot to do with the offense that they were running. Scotty Brooks was keeping things simple. He was taking advantage of these two great one-on-one players, defend like hell, and then allow these guys to take turns doing what they do. Look, worked. It was pretty damn successful. Got them to the finals, perennial in the playoffs, deep runs. It just couldn't get that. They couldn't take that last step because they couldn't take full advantage of everything. Now that KD's out of the way, Paul George is there, kind of the same deal. I'm now beginning to believe that this may be the only way Russ knows how to play. By now, he should know that playing with his needle on red in the playoffs doesn't work emotionally. It's too exhausting, not only for him, but his entire team. Winning in the playoffs requires dissecting the other team, not ripping someone's head off, literally or figuratively. Westbrook plays as if he's in a duel, and one swipe of the sword in the right place, and the victory will be his. That's not how it works. It's not how basketball works. It's a 48-minute chess match. In fact, it's beyond that. It's whatever 7 times 48. Let me do the math. 280. What? 320 minutes? I'm going to go with it. 320 minutes of a chess match. Now, Lillard seems to understand that. Westbrook got the better of him early on in Game 4, and the Thunder built a lead off of it. Did you see Lillard sweat? Not at all. Never changed his demeanor, never changed his approach, and in the second half, he caught fire, while Westbrook nearly went scoreless. It's funny how they were talking about it's one of the other nicknames that Lillard has acquired is Logo Lillard from where he shoots the ball on threes, that he's shooting it so deep. But when I watch Lillard play, whether it's shooting those deep threes or the way he attacks the basket and what he's looking for when he attacks the basket, I can immediately see. He had a little play. It didn't work, but he kind of quick-stepped it and underhand extend on the glass. I think he was going past Paul George. It was the only way he could get the shot up. And he didn't get it, got bumped, complained that he didn't get fouled, didn't make the shot. But there was this moment where you could tell Lillard instantly recognized, this is my best option. And he adjusted his game accordingly. And he took the shot. There was nobody else open. He turned the corner. Nobody else was coming hard. And he said, okay, so how do I get this shot up and put it in? And he nearly made it. I don't see that with Russ. Russ goes 100 miles an hour and suddenly he is at the moment of shooting or passing, and that's when he tries to figure out what to do. There's no pre-thought to it. And I always thought, oh, well, if he slowed down, maybe he's just going too fast. But it's not that. He's really not thinking about how do I finish this play until he gets to the end of the play. Now, the other aspect of this whole battle between the two of them is the hardest part to accept is that if there's anyone Westbrook should respect, it's Lillard. They were both lightly recruited out of high school. They had to earn their stripes in college, and they were still discounted coming into the league and for a fair amount of time afterward. They both are Californians. They came up from tough neighborhoods. Russ down in L.A., Lillard in Oakland. They both have decided to stay in smaller markets with the teams that first showed them faith, a sign of their respective loyalty. They have a lot in common. Westbrook should know, because of that Lillard is not going to be intimidated any more than anyone would think Westbrook ever could be. But Westbrook isn't thinking about his opponent or the best way to beat him. There only seems to be one way, and it's a way that is not working. And until Westbrook comes to grips with that, I'm going to back off defending him. I've seen enough guys who I considered just too damn wild and unpredictable to become champions. Guys like Ron Artest and Lamar Odom to say that, well, the light's never going to come on. Russ is who he is. I do believe it's not that guys can change, that guys can learn. Russ is always going to be Russ to a certain extent. But can he be a more effective one? I hope so. I can say this. He has to be, if Oklahoma City is ever going to take full advantage of him and what they've put around him. All right, that does it for this episode of Bucher Friendless, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast network. If you enjoy the show, or even if you don't, please rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. All you have to do is hit the stars, however many stars you want to give us. If you want to leave a comment about what you like or don't like, feel free to do that as well. But if you screenshot the stars and tweet it to us at Bucher Friends, you'll be eligible to win some prizes. All right, that does it. In the next podcast, again, Will Blackman will be out. I will be flying solo. It will be a look at the NBA playoffs. We may get into some of the other battles, beginning with the Nets and the Sixers, and can Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, in a perfect world, coexist on the same team well enough to win a championship? That and more in the next podcast. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening.